can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you. Live from the Lions Den Golf Club studio, here are your hosts, Mark Freeman and Weldon Braxton.
Welcome into the Cogswell Motors studio. You are watching RiverValleyLeader.com. I am your host, Weldon Braxton. Matty Lassiter running the controls. I just got back into town the other day, and Mark has already left me alone here in the studio to do all the work myself. He says he'll try to call in, but I think he's busy putting up selfies of him in a tuxedo on Facebook. So Matty and I will man the controls in the meantime. We will hear from Jason Kilburn, the man who's done a great job over the last few months filling in for me and contributing to the Sports Blitz. We'll hear from him at 11:30. But, you know, it's really an interesting day. I was telling Maddie, I got to know what the sponsors are here on the show. I got back here. I've been gone for a few months now, and I don't want to say the wrong sponsors and get us sued here at River Valley.
You came back and got thrown right into the fire. You just wanted to have some protection there.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be out here saying, this is the Sports Blitz brought to you by the Model T. Sir, they don't make Model Ts anymore, So I got to make sure I'm saying stuff. I may say some businesses that aren't even in business anymore, just shut down. So I am updated, and the first thing we have is our Peters Family Living local sports look, which has not changed. I believe that's what it was when I was here. We love our partners at Peters Family Living. High school football action tonight. It's playoff time. All the times where you get the kinks out and you work on things week to week, and when the coach sits up and says, well, we're just trying to get better week to week. Well, that time is over, because if you lose now, your season is over. It is now basketball season, and it is off-season time. So, and we have some teams, Matty, here in the River Valley who have qualified for the playoffs. The Russellville Cyclones are the 4th seed from the 7A, 6A Central, and they will host Benton, a rematch from last year. You remember these two teams met in the playoffs. Benton, the 5th seed from the 7A, 6A South. The Pottsville Apaches, 3rd seed from the 4A4, will travel to Newport, who's the 3 seed from the 4A2. And we talked about this, and I think we've been saying it all year long. The 4A4, one of the more competitive conferences in the entire state, regardless of classification. Pottsville, still a really good team. A couple of losses knocked them all the way down to the 3 seed, and they'll have a good battle with Newport. Also from that 4A4, the Dardanelle Sand Lizards, the 4 seed from the 4A4 will take on Highland, the number 3 seed from the 4A3, and then the sensational season the Lamar Warriors have had. 9-1, they are the 2 seed from the 3A4. They will host the Barton Bears, who are the 3 seed from the 3A2. The Atkins Red Devils, getting it done again. We know they've had a little bit of a tradition rebuild the last couple of years. They've done a great job. They are the 3 seed from the 3A4, and they will travel to West Fork, the 3 seed from the 3A1. And then Two Rivers, the Gators, the 4 seed from the 3A5, will travel to Corning. Corning's the 3 seed from the 3A3. And then last but not least, probably the most successful team we've had in the Arkansas River Valley this year, the number 1 seed Hector Wildcats from the 2A4 will host Parker's Chapel, who are the 5th seed from the 2A8. So a lot of games. Your team is playing somewhere, I'm sure. There's a local game. Again, the Cyclones are in town. Lamar, Hector. If you want to catch an area high school playoff game, you can do that as well. Again, we just listed the matchups if you want to go out of town and catch one of your favorite teams. And I always love high school playoff action, particularly with my position now, coaching college football. I always like to get out and watch these kids and to see which ones may have a chance to play at the next level and do some really good things. So that'll be something to look forward to. On the college front, Arkansas Tech in action. The Golden Suns yesterday fell 3-2 to SAU on the road. The Golden Suns are now 22-11 overall, 9-5 in the GAC. They will be in action next Thursday, November 21st, in the GAC tournament in Hot Springs. So go check out the ladies and the Golden Suns. Football sort of an up and down season early on, but they're trying to get hot right now. The ATU Wonder Boys will host Harding tomorrow at 2 o'clock. It's senior day, final game of the year. Coach Monica's first season. Again, it hasn't been perfect, but it's been an overall success as far as gaining momentum. They have a chance to end the year with a 3-game win streak. So go on and check out the Wonder Boys tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Men's basketball, they're 1-1 on the young season. Mark and I talked Wednesday about their high-scoring loss to Southwest Baptist. They will try to rebound against Mid-America Christian tomorrow at Tucker Coliseum. So, again, with the Wonder Boys, you always want to see that high-octane, up-tempo basketball that they play. So, again, if you're just jonesing for a basketball game tomorrow, go ahead and check that out. We've got a lot planned on today's show. Don't want to get into too much of it. Just want to look at a few things. We'll cruise around the NBA. Michael Jordan. A lot of people know him as the greatest of all time. I recognize him as that. Some people may disagree. He was asked in an interview to promote NBA 2K, the video game, about a pickup team he would play with. If he could pick anybody from the history of the NBA to go play a pickup game with, he gave us his 4 teammates who he would have. He left off some pretty important names. He's got a good team. We'll look at that a little bit later. Also in the NBA, Derrick Rose. We know he's coming back from his ACL injury, didn't play at all last year. He's back, but now he's dinged up with a hamstring and other sorts of injuries. So if you're a Chicago Bulls fan, should you be concerned? Rumors floating about in the NBA, trade possibilities. Amon Shumpert and Kenneth Faried have been flirted as far as being traded for one another, although sources say nothing is imminent. And on the college football front, Will Muschamp. We know the Florida Gators have not had a very good season at all. This was a team expected to compete for the SEC East and possibly give Alabama trouble in the SEC title game. Right now they are struggling. The athletic director has spoken out about Will Muschamp. We'll get into that as well. And obviously the story that's covering college football, the story that's really taken over is the status of Jameis Winston. The Florida State redshirt freshman having a sensational year. He's played well on big stages. We saw what he did against Clemson a few weeks ago. The Seminoles are primed to finish undefeated and play for a national championship title, but he has some assault allegations hanging over him now. Nothing concrete. We still don't have all the information, but how does this affect the Heisman race? Who's crept back into it? NFL. Ed Reed, the veteran, former Baltimore Raven legend, signed with the Houston Texans. Of course, that hasn't worked out. The Texans have had a tough year all along. He is now signed with the New York Jets, reunited with Rex Ryan. Of course, Rex, the former defensive coordinator of the Jets. How will this impact the New York Jets? Can they take that next step, maybe compete with New England in that division, or at the very least maybe compete for a wild card spot? Matty's over here shaking his head. He must not believe in the gangrene defense, but it is that offense that I'm worried about too. And Ed Reed, what does he have left? We'll talk about that. And then the game of the week. Well, I say the game of the week, one of them. There's one in the NFC that I like, but the AFC matchup, which is our CrossFit Russellville poll question. The Kansas City Chiefs, undefeated, taking on Peyton Manning and the prolific offense of the Denver Broncos. Kansas City, undefeated, they are an 8-point underdog against the Denver Broncos. And our CrossFit Russellville poll question, is that too high or too low? We know about Peyton Manning in that offense, the weapons he has, Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker, Julius Thomas, Wes Welker, Noshawn Moreno. That offense going up against a Kansas City defense has been flat out nasty this year. But Vegas doesn't like the Chiefs. They're giving them 8 points. So what would you do? That's our poll question. Kansas City, 8-point underdogs, too high, too low, or is it just right? And then, as always, on the Sports Blitz, Matty, we have to look at the Arkansas Razorbacks. A lot of action. Yeah, Matty's saying do it. We're going to talk
really
basketball.
Have to? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
basketball.
I'm okay with that. Okay.
But, unfortunately, we do have to hit football too, Matty. A bye week this week. They're going to be taking on Mississippi State. Mississippi State taking on Alabama.
I think we'll win this week.
Do you really?
Well, let me say I don't think we'll lose. At least not badly. The bye week, I think.
You don't think
he can't
we'll lose
take
this
us
week?
down in the bye week.
Well, let's just hope we don't get anybody arrested.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, that's true. We could lose in a bye week that way, and that would be Arkansas's luck. So we'll see.
Matty, you had some interesting takes on Brandon Allen yesterday. You want to share that with us? I don't want to get too far into hog talk.
Yeah, I think the gist of what I was saying yesterday was that first off, I don't think he'll be the starter next year. And I don't see flashes of anything in him that make me excited. I don't think he's the guy. And it also scares me some of the things I heard about Austin yesterday too. About how he just likes to sling it in whatever direction he likes, whether his guy's there or not. That's kind of scary. I don't know how true that is, but there's some sources saying exactly that. But I just don't see the flashes that you would like to see. Like with Tyler Wilson, he came in kind of thrown to the fire against Auburn, and you're like, okay, this guy, he's going to be good.
Right.
We don't know how good, but he's going to be good. Now, you can't really judge it by the game last year when he got thrown in against Alabama, Brandon Allen. That's a meat grinder. But
course.
Still, he's looked similar to that again this year, and I did not expect that. So I just don't see anything there that makes me excited, which makes me think that maybe freshman Rafe Peavy is going to be the guy next year, which would not really be good news if you're looking at it from a quarterback standpoint. If you're going to have a third-year guy who's going to be, who's going to have a freshman start over him, and I think that's what's going to happen. But maybe I'm wrong.
And it's really an interesting situation because we look back a handful of months ago, and we felt great about the quarterback situation at Arkansas. First of all, we had an initial belief in Brandon Allen that he could get the job done. And then we had a belief in his younger brother, Austin, that should something happen, or Austin may just overtake Brandon anyway because he's so much better. And, of course, you had Doo-Wop Mitchell and then the promise of Rafe Peavy coming in. But I agree with you, Matty. If you're just resting your hopes on a true freshman Rafe Peavy coming in next year saving the day, you're going to be in for a season probably like this year, which is something I hate to say. But, I've been saying the last couple of shows, Matty, I've been gone. We all know I've been out of the loop. And I followed Arkansas from afar, Twitter, read a few articles. Obviously, I'm always on rivervalleyleader.com checking out the Razorback content. Of course I am. But I'm back in the state now. I want to know what's the feeling. Where are we at as far as Bielema, long term about him? How are we feeling as Razorback Nation about that situation? Where are we at?
I think people are restless, which, it's easy for me to get that way a little bit, but then you have to put it in perspective and say, we know he's a good coach. This is his first year, and it would have been bad, maybe not quite the same way, but it would have been bad with Petrino if he were still here. I really think that just the cupboard, as far as, especially when I look at the field, the speed is not there. There is no speed on this team, and you can't fake that. You can't fake speed. So it's like if the players aren't there, they're not there. And we do not have any receivers. If your number one guy is like a Keon Hatcher, you hear his name like twice, and it's when one of them is when he's dropping a good pass. That's very bad. We don't have any receivers. Hunter Henry is our best receiver, and he's a tight end. So it's one of those things. I think it would have been bad either way. And I think looking at Bielema in press conferences, I think he's surprised at how bad they are. I don't think he expected that.
Well, And then you look at Coach Bielema, and I was supportive of him early on. I had questions when the hire was first made, but I got to where I was supportive of him because
you did call it beforehand too. We need to bring that up and just put that out there again. That Weldon Braxton called it.
We do. I'm
a candidate.
I'm putting that on my resume. I am, but one of the questions I had, and if I could sit down with Brett Bielema and Butch Jones, because those are the two new SEC coaches that I would want to focus on. Mark Stoops, Kentucky was going to be horrible no matter what conference they're in. Gus Malzahn's already had a taste of the SEC, but Butch Jones, he's won conference championships at his previous two stops, Cincinnati and Central Michigan. Brett Bielema's obviously gotten it done in the Big Ten. I'd like to sit and ask those two, all right, fellas, you wanted some of the SEC. What do you think now? What do you think now? Because I think you're right. Coach Bielema was a little bit taken back by how much of a disadvantage he is talent-wise. And, one of the things that I can't say it made national news, but it sort of swirled around. I even heard it up north where I was Brett Bielema essentially digging in, saying, look, we are going to run the football. We're not going to start changing things up and going single back and dinking it around and throwing it. And, I know there were rumors that Jim Chaney kind of wanted to do a little bit more of that, which makes sense because at Tennessee when Chaney was there, when the running game didn't work, he said, forget this. Cordero Patterson, Justin Hunter, let's start throwing it around. But Coach Bielema's adamant that he is not in the business of quick fixes. I think that may have rubbed some people the wrong way. And then that's when you start hearing people throw around the H word of Houston nut. And, oh, no, here we go again. And even as a Houston Nutt supporter, the only one on earth back in the day, I wouldn't even say Brett Bielema's in that category. Brett Bielema's organizational skills are second to none. His understanding of how to build a program and winning, definitely not like Houston Nutt. Give it some time. I agree with you, Matty. I agree. But as we look on here, we're actually going to take a quick break. We're 17 past the hour because I want to save all my good content for after the break. I don't want to get into it. So you do not want to go away from the Sports Blitz.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KRK4 today.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
I heard Michael Smith did one. He had Dennis Rodman at the time.
We are back on the Sports Blitz. If you heard a certain voice, you may recognize it. It is the man who takes pictures of himself in tuxedos, Mark Freeman. Mark, how are you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm sorry. I didn't get the heads up that we were coming back from break. So here I am, opening my mouth and acting like I've never been there before. I'm doing good. Just getting ready for a wedding this weekend, so.
You got all the pictures of you taken, any more selfies you want to take, jacket off, maybe different poses.
Oh, look, it's a wedding. It's a good chance for me to get made fun of by my peers, so I figure I might as well take a selfie.
There you go. There you go. Well, you came in at just the right time because we know how much of an NBA fan you are, Mark. And Michael Jordan, in an interview as part of an NBA 2K promotion, was asked about his pickup team. If he could go play a game out on the playground or wherever, he and what other 4 players would he take? And if you have not seen this, ladies and gentlemen, this would be the starting 5 Michael Jordan would put out on the floor. At point guard, he would have Magic Johnson. Understandable. Himself at the 2 guard, his buddy, his running mate Scottie Pippen at the 3, Magic's running mate James Worthy at the 4, and Hakeem the Dream at the 5. Now, Mark, when you hear that list and before you give yours, what do you think about Michael Jordan's starting 5?
It tells me he wants to run. That's what it tells me. He's got some guys who can guard, but he's got some guys who will run. James Worthy at the 4, that's a little peculiar to me, so it just makes it seem like he just has some guys that want to get up and down the floor with Magic, knowing he would be able to run with Michael and Scotty and James Worthy. Hakeem's not, the most fleet of foot guy, so he's not going to be running up and down the floor all that often, but it seems like that's a team that he'd put together that would guard, but it would also want to run.
I agree. I think it would be a team that would get up and down the floor, and he says that team would not lose under any circumstances. I don't know. I mean, like you said, Mark, they would want to run, but what happens if we kind of grinded them out a little bit?
That's why I built the team that I proposed here. I don't know that I could beat them because at the end of the day, it would come down to stopping Michael Jordan, and nobody seemed to have really good luck doing that. But I did put a team together I think that could grind it to a halt a little bit.
Well, without further ado, Mark Freeman, let's hear your team that will beat Michael Jordan's.
Well, look, he's got Magic Johnson, a 6'9" point guard, so I've got the only logical choice in NBA history to try to guard him, aside from maybe Oscar Robertson, and LeBron James is my one. Got him playing the point because, like I said, Magic Johnson, he's a matchup nightmare. Then at the 2, since Michael Jordan is the 2 guard that is obviously going to have an advantage over anybody, the closest thing that we've ever seen at his position to him is, and I hate to say this, I hope Brad Caldwell's listening right now, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant at the 2. My 3, you've got Scottie Pippen, who is going to obviously lock somebody down on the defensive side. You know what? I didn't write this down. So did I write it down, Maddie? Well, you need to look it up because I'm drawing a blank on my 3. No, I said Dr. J. I said Dr. J was my 3. My 4 went back and forth because I like Tim Duncan. I think he's the best power forward of all time. But I went with Moses Malone because when you're playing against a team with the guys that Michael Jordan's got, you got to have somebody who will command the rebounds. And my 4 and 5 will lock down the paint because I've got Moses Malone at the 4, Shaq at the 5. If we need to run, young Shaq has done that a little bit. Moses Malone can run the floor. LeBron can distribute. But if we needed to lock down in a half-court set, you're not going to get a rebound against Moses Malone and Shaq. And I just think I'd have a team that's better than his. What do you think, Weldon?
I like your thinking. Now on Shaq, I'm glad you brought that up. Which Shaq? Are we Orlando Shaq here? We can run a little bit, or are we LA Shaq?
No, we're Phoenix Sun Shaq. We definitely go Orlando to early LA. The guy who would catch lobs in transition. That guy. People don't understand how good that guy. He was just incredible.
He was
I go with a young in his prime Shaq, and he's still going to have trouble with Hakeem. Nobody could guard Hakeem, but Hakeem, obviously, when he did dominate Shaq, it was early on in Shaq's career and late in Hakeem's prime, so I don't think it was a fair matchup.
Look. Well, by the way, I would take the Boston Celtics Shaq. That'd be the Shaq I'd take.
Gotcha. Who do you have in your 5?
The Big Shamrock. Now, you and I are pretty similar, Mark. You've got LeBron James. Obviously, you have to have his versatility. I mean, from a talent and a basketball standpoint, he's already one of the greatest players ever. Now, people won't go with that overall because of his numbers and what he hadn't accomplished yet. But clearly, just overall talent-wise, he's one of the greatest ever. You have to have him on your team. I agree with you. Kobe Bryant. Defensively, Kobe Bryant in his prime was as good as anybody. That's why he's closely compared to Michael Jordan because, like Jordan, he was a great defender as well as a great scorer. I'm going to put Kevin Durant on my team. And this team is going to be very long, very versatile, very good offensively. Kevin Durant's going to really be a floor spacer on this team. I need him to use his size and length. I'm going to need him to hit shots for me because I don't have a whole lot of shooting on this team, but this team will get up and down the floor. A guy you mentioned, I don't think you had him on your team, I'm not sure, but I know you mentioned him, is the Doctor, because the Doctor could flat out run the floor. He could score inside and out. Athletically, he was good. I just gotta if I'm going small ball, if we're gonna run up and down the floor, I'm gonna have my man Dr. J on there. And then center was tough for me. And it's the toughest one of any of these to pick. Magic's usually your 1, Jordan's your 2, a little bit debate at the 3. But usually when you get to that 5 spot, Mark, you don't know. You can use the intangibles and defense of a Bill Russell. You could use just the flat-out physical dominance of a Shaquille O'Neal.
Let me insert myself in here.
Uh-oh.
Are you going to say Kwame Brown? I really hope that you're going to say Kwame Brown.
Well, did you see Skip Bayless's list yesterday?
I didn't. Was Kwame on it?
Kwame Brown was on it. Rasho Nesterovic was on it.
Oh, yeah. What's the Bradley guy? The
Sean Bradley.
Yeah, Sean Bradley.
Yeah, George Mirasan and Slava Mevadenko. Yes,
beautiful players.
Skip had them all on there. He was just trying to mess with Stephen
Okay,
A.
I'll let you get back to your list.
But you look at the big man. I ended up going with Wilt, and I understand that Wilt, from a number standpoint, wouldn't be able to do nearly what he did, in his day. But still, you're talking about a former track athlete, somebody who can flat out run the floor. One of the only people I've ever seen block Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's hook shot. Blocked it twice. And, nobody's blocking that hook too often. He blocked it twice on one play. Physically, his strength, his athleticism, what he could do from a rebounding standpoint, I think will help anchor my otherwise small team. And that's the team I'd roll with.
Yeah, I thought about Kareem, too. I did have Dr. J as my 3 just because, like you said, he can run. He can also block it up if he needs to. He's an MVP. I mean, I do feel like, I'm too young to have watched him play in his prime, but listening to what he did in the ABA before he even got to the NBA, he was one of the best players in the world. And he locked up with Moses, so he and Moses on the same team. That's a wrap. I got it. My team winning.
They're the killer combination. So, Michael, Mark and I are going to put our squads together, and you're going to be in trouble, although Mike said his team wouldn't lose. Staying in the NBA, Mark, Derrick Rose. I just want to look at this for a second because we know he's still knocking the rust off from his ACL injury. He took a year off and what have you. But now he's back, but he's dinged up with hamstrings and issues like that. If you're a Bulls fan, how worried are you long-term about Derrick Rose getting back right?
What has Derrick Rose done in his career? Aside from, he had a great regular season in the MVP year. They got beaten 5 games by the Heat. He's a volume shooter at point guard. He doesn't guard anybody. He's not. I don't understand what he really has. I do feel bad that he got hurt, but I'm not the biggest Derrick Rose fan. So if I'm a Bulls fan, I'm probably a little worried. But they would probably be better off not having Derrick Rose on the team in the long run. If there's a new contract negotiation, and what he's going to command on the market is incredibly more than he's worth, in my opinion.
And the thing, when you brought up an interesting point, Chicago, we hear so much about the supporting cast around Derrick Rose, and is it up to par? Does he have enough around him? And sure, there's some debate about, Mike Dunleavy and guys like that. Can they get it done? But at some point, do you have to look at a Derrick Rose and say, okay, you've got Boozer, who's a nice piece. You have a Luol Deng, a Joakim Noah. You have a Jimmy Butler, who's emerged within the last, going back to the end of last year. Are we to a point to where Derrick Rose may have enough? He's just not maximizing what he has around him?
I'm not sure he does, but that's partially because he makes so much money. LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh take a little less to play together, and it seems like they've got more money on their payroll than can really afford them the opportunity to go out and get guys who can make a big difference for them. The Heat built it around 3 superstars and guys who, like Ray Allen, would take less money, and I don't know that anybody's taking less money to play with Derrick Rose. So I think he's sort of danged if he does. Right now he's going to have to. He's just going to have to prove to me. He doesn't. Obviously, he doesn't care what I think.
Yeah, he does.
He was the MVP, and to me, he's just not going to be able to not going to be able to win a championship as the team's currently assembled. So I mean, I can't blame him for making as much money as they possibly give him. But at the end of the day, the Bulls, as they're currently constructed, they're not going to win a championship.
The Chicago Bulls, one of the many teams in the Eastern Conference trying to compete for a playoff spot and chase the Miami Heat, who are right now sitting at 5-3. And apparently, Mark, you would think the whole world is falling down. It's, oh no, the Heat. What's wrong with them? 3 losses already. The Pacers are undefeated. This is the year. This is the year Paul George is ready to lead them to an Eastern Conference championship. Mark Freeman, are you drinking the Kool-Aid?
I'm worried about the Pacers. I said it before the year. They had everything they needed last year. I thought Danny Granger would come back and give them a little bit more scoring punch. I didn't realize that the scoring punch they would get would be with the fact that Paul George was that much better offensively. Man, they've got a rim protector. They've got they will struggle at point guard, but Miami's not just the best point guard team anyway. With Chalmers at their best lineup's probably got LeBron at the 4 or at the point. Maybe playing a little Scottie Pippen point forward, but. The Pacers worry me because with Roy Hibbert in there and David West able to get every rebound and just muck it up in there because Chris Bosh isn't much of an inside threat. If Dwayne Wade's not healthy, the Pacers can and will beat the Miami Heat this year. I do have Miami winning it, but that's sort of biased because right now what I'm seeing, if Dwayne Wade's not playing healthy, the Pacers on paper are even the better team. So I mean, I think Miami's got their hands full. I do obviously still favor them and hope they win.
Yeah, I mean, look, you look at last year. I didn't have a whole lot of respect for the Pacers. I thought Dwayne Wade's injury allowed that series to go 7. But Dwayne Wade is getting older. Paul George is a lot better. And my position on the Pacers has changed. I have the right to do that from year to year. And this year, I agree with you, Mark. The Indiana Pacers are legit. Although my point is I would not panic on the Miami Heat just yet. Look, they're the 2-time defending champions. Of course they're going to coast a little bit. Of course they're not going to take every game seriously. If you're the Indiana Pacers, you're the one who needs to fight all 82 games to get that home court advantage in the Eastern Conference. So I agree with you. The Indiana Pacers are a legitimate threat. I respect them more than I did last year, although I would say don't panic just because the Miami Heat are 5-3.
Yeah, you're right. Miami's just coasting right now.
Looking on in the NBA, Mark, is there anything you wanted to hit in the NBA? I just want to get those few points out there on the NBA's front.
Who's the MVP? Who looks like 10% of the season gone? It's not very far in so far, but does it look like to you like it does to me that Chris Paul right now is by far the early season MVP? Because it seems like LeBron's sort of coasting. Kevin Durant is trying to work back in with Russell Westbrook. It looks like Chris Paul. The numbers he's putting up are incredible.
Oh, yeah, I don't disagree with you. Chris Paul, he's what that team needs. He's got Doc Rivers, a coach he's comfortable with now. Blake Griffin's showing a little more toughness, although he's still a little bit suspect as far as his toughness and how much you can bother him. But right now, yeah, I agree. He's got the Clippers playing good basketball right now. That Western Conference, I mean, San Antonio, they're doing what they're doing, 8-1. And it's like, well, I didn't even know San Antonio was playing basketball this year. I look at the standings, they're 8-1. But yeah, Chris Paul, I couldn't disagree with you there being the MVP. And how about the Western Conference? I mean, Portland right now off to a good start. Golden State. You want to talk about a team that's flat out loaded. Steph Curry, we know he can drop 30 at any given moment. Klay Thomas is a bona fide shooter. Now you throw in an Andre Iguodala. They have weapons on that Golden State team. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves now with Kevin Martin and Kevin Love and Ricky Rubio playing well. The West, Oklahoma City better get this thing get it going because they'll be a 4 or 5 seed if they're not careful. Houston as well.
Kevin Love is the great white hope, right? He's 25 and 15 a game. He's been really, really good. And all jokes aside, the West, like you said, it is loaded. They've got a lot of talent over there. I think Oklahoma City will put it together a little bit. Russell Westbrook, I'm glad he's come back as quickly as he has. It's sort of one of those things where the West is a little more deep, but I think the champ's going to come from the East. As I think that Miami and Indiana are the 2 best teams as far as the way they're constructed for playoff basketball. The Spurs, they're still plodding along. Plodding along. Got that old squad, but they know how to play. So the West is looking good.
Did you make a Western Conference pick? I guess I wasn't here when you did preseason picks. Who'd you have in the West?
Man, what? I don't know if we ever did make a prediction out of the West. The Spurs to me are tough. The Oklahoma City Thunder are probably the team that I would have favored coming in. If I'd have known that Russell Westbrook was going to get back this early, I would have expected that Oklahoma City would be right there in the West. But I haven't really made a prediction yet, and that's how crazy the West is. I couldn't tell you right now who I'd favor to win it.
No, it is crazy. I mean, right now, a lot of eyes are on Houston, Dwight Howard, James Harden, putting that thing together. I still think they're a little short, a few pieces away. But hey, if some things fall right, if you have a significant injury, you look at Russell Westbrook last year. His injury opened up the entire West to teams like Memphis and other Golden State teams like that to get involved. San Antonio. So you just never know what's going to happen. But I'd probably go with the Lakers in the West right now, Mark. I love what Steve Blake brings to the table and how he runs the show. Now that's the great white hope, Mark.
Steve Blake, huh?
I mean, he's a superstar. I mean, he's averaging nearly a triple-double in his mind.
Wow.
I'm just messing with Steve Blake. I'm just messing with Steve. When we get back from break, we are going to talk about a little bit of college football here. Mark, Will Muschamp, we know the tough season that the Florida Gators have had. His athletic director has come out and made some comments. We'll see what those are about, as well as the Jameis Winston story when we get back. Do not go away.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
KRK4 today.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Nine 968-6397 is the number to get in here on the Sports Blitz. Wait, Matty, is that still our phone number? All right. When you're gone, you may get a new phone number, a new sponsor. So But that is the number, 968-6397 gets you in. Before the break, we were about to talk college football. The Florida Gators, one of the most disappointing teams in all of college football this year. I mean, this is almost as disappointing as Arkansas. What was that, last year? Yeah, it was last year Arkansas was supremely disappointing. But the Gators right now are 4-5 on the season. A lot of people had Florida expected to compete for the SEC East title. Compete right in there with Georgia and teams of that ilk. Possibly compete with the Alabama Crimson Tide for the overall SEC title. Well, I have news for you. That is not going to happen. Right now, Florida is struggling just to get into bowl contention. They take on South Carolina tomorrow. And a lot of grumblings around Gainesville. What's the status of Will Muschamp? Well, apparently his athletic director, Jeremy Foley, caught wind of those rumors, and he said Will Muschamp is safe. He says, we understand, and this is a quote, "We understand that this football season has not gone the way any of us wanted it to go. Certainly not the way our fans wanted it to go, and most of all, not the way Will Muschamp wanted it to go. We have a history of being successful. We have a history of fixing things when they need to be fixed, and that is what is going to happen here." That is athletic director Jeremy Foley. So, when Will Muschamp was hired, I think there were sort of questions about him anyway. He was the head coach in waiting at the University of Texas. He's from Florida. He went to Georgia, but he's from Florida. He had the ties and the connections. Obviously, his resume was impressive based on where he had been. He had coached in the NFL. He had coached under Nick Saban, at LSU and with the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, he spent time at Auburn. So a lot of experience, but the question was, is Will the guy to be the head of a program, a major program? I remember that was the question, and a lot of people didn't know. And he had a very difficult first year, taking over for Urban Meyer. And then it comes out that in his second year, he wins 11 games, although they laid an egg in the Sugar Bowl against Louisville. And that's a whole nother deal I want to get to in a minute, too. These teams laying eggs in these big bowl games. We gotta stop doing that. But the thing with Will Muschamp, and I've said this is where football's at right now. Offensively, you have to be able to move the ball. You have to be able to score points. I don't care what your defense is doing. Gone are the days where you can say, we're going to hold people to 10 points a game, we're going to score 13 points a game, and we're going to win a lot of games. Those days are over. Nick Saban, one of the best, if not the best defensive mind in the game right now, has acknowledged that. You go back a couple of years ago when they lost that field goal fest at home to LSU. They come back in the national title game, and they figure out a way to put some touchdowns on the board because even Saban, Mr. Defense himself, realizes, hey, I got to put points on the board. And that's something that these defensive-minded head coaches are going to have to come to grips with. Rex Ryan in the NFL, he's one of the best defensive minds in pro football. But he's had to come around and say, hey, we've got to score points. And when I look at this Florida Gator program, the only way it's going to take that next step, the only way it's going to get back to being a consistent power is they're going to have to put a priority on being aggressive, moving the ball, and scoring points on offense to go along with their great defense. And whether it happens, we'll see. But you look at the talent of the Florida Gators, there's a lot down there. And quite frankly, they just didn't get it done this year. There is no reason why this Florida Gator team should be 4-5 right now, 3-4 in the SEC. None whatsoever. You get beat at home by Vanderbilt. They double you up 34-17. Now, James Franklin's an outstanding coach, don't get me wrong. Obviously, his name is up for a lot of jobs. He's done a tremendous job taking Vanderbilt from being an academic laughingstock into being a respectable team in the SEC. Nonetheless, they should never come into the swamp on homecoming and beat you the way they did. That's that's inexcusable whatsoever. I mean, so if you're the Florida Gator fan base, it's understandable that you're having a few rumblings right now about Will Muschamp. Then you look at what Urban Meyer's doing up at Ohio State. He hadn't lost a game since he's taken over that program. But, what I was looking at earlier and when I was going to start talking about was the SEC, I'm going to say we as a conference, we have to do a better job in these big BCS bowl games against inferior teams, because I'm starting to notice something over the last few years that I don't like. I go back to, remember the Pat White, Steve Slayton, West Virginia team that they were significant underdogs against the Georgia Bulldogs, and they went in, they beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, and it was the greatest thing ever. Oh, we won. We beat an SEC team. And the SEC team, so, we didn't really care. We didn't want to be here anyway. Well, you remember Alabama and Utah. Alabama undefeated through the regular season. They play Tim Tebow's Florida team, and then what happens? They lose to Florida. Then they go to the Sugar Bowl, and they lose to Utah. And then Utah says, yeah, we beat an SEC team. Of course, then it happened with Louisville and Florida. I'm tired of having to use the excuse as a person who lives in SEC country. I have to sit up and say, you know what? Our SEC representative didn't really want to be there. It was a bigger game for little Louisville or little West Virginia or little Utah. They cared much more about the game than our SEC representative, because it's a legitimate excuse, but at the same time, it's an excuse nonetheless, and I don't like being in the business of excuses. So if it were to happen that the SEC has a representative in a major BCS bowl game against an inferior opponent, focus in, take care of business, so we don't have to make those excuses. That's just my tangent about the SEC teams playing in major bowl games against these inferior teams. We need to take care of business. But the story that we've talked about that's really hanging over college football right now is Florida State freshman quarterback Jameis Winston having a sensational year, on track to win the Heisman Trophy. But then we get these allegations about sexual assault, and we don't have details. It's very early in the process, and I want to make that clear, because for that reason, I don't have an opinion necessarily in terms of, Jameis should be ashamed of himself or the accuser should be ashamed of herself. We don't know how far Jameis Winston was involved or what he allegedly did. It's too early for any of that stuff. But what I will say is this incident took place in 2012 when Jameis Winston was just sitting on the bench red-shirting, trying to get better, trying to get ready for 2013. Didn't hear anything about it. Didn't hear a whisper about it. Didn't hear, red shirt quarterback Jameis Winston implicated. I didn't hear any of that stuff. The first I'm hearing about it is when he is en route to winning the Heisman Trophy. Now, again, I don't know the details, so I can't sit up here and say, this is falsified or this is made up. I can't say that because it would be totally disrespectful to the accuser, and you always want to be sensitive to those situations. But I do have the right, and I am going to sit up here and ask questions about the timing of it. Why is this just coming out? Would this ever come out if Florida State were a 4-6 team right now on their way to being mediocre and being irrelevant? Would this be a prominent story? Would this have come out? Why is it that the Florida State Seminoles are undefeated? Jameis Winston's on his way to winning a Heisman Trophy, and this is just coming out. That's just a question. Yeah, I'm not casting any aspersions. I'm not saying the news report was dirty or the police department was dirty or underhanded. That's just a question. If you have the answer, please let me know, because that's one thing I'd like to know. But it will be interesting to see how it goes as the details of the case come out. That's why I'm reserving judgment in terms of, whether or not I blame the newspaper or I blame Jameis or what have you. But it has affected the Heisman Trophy race as well. We cannot ignore that. Again, it looked like Jameis was well on his way to winning a Heisman Trophy. Not the case anymore. Not so sure. One of the reasons why Jameis Winston was a runaway favorite to win it, not only because Marcus Mariota suffered an injury, but the guy that won it last year, people don't really like him, okay? They don't like what he does off the field. They don't really like how he represents the Heisman Trust and the Heisman Committee. That guy's Johnny Manziel, who is having an outstanding season of his own right. From a number standpoint, he could win the Heisman Trophy again. But you thought you had a guy in Jameis Winston that says, okay, that Manziel guy, we don't have to give it to him because we have Winston. nice, quiet kid, good character, putting up good numbers. Whew, we don't have to give it to Manziel again. Well, things may be opened up. You may have to give it to the modern day Ken Dorsey. A.J. McCarron. I get those two mixed up all the time. A.J. McCarron's that guy who you put on the back burner for the Heisman Trophy because of the great defense and the talent around him on the offensive line and in the backfield. A.J. McCarron just gets his business done. Maybe he jumps up in the Heisman race. All I know is the Heisman Trust, they are putting emphasis on character. I think Johnny Manziel sort of re-emphasized that, and so it'll be interesting to see how the race, and we still have big games to unfold. We still have Alabama. They still have games to play. Florida State still has a conference championship. Manziel still has LSU. So Heisman moments still can be made in college football. But jumping on to the NFL, Ed Reed, one of the greatest safeties of all time. We talked about how he signed with the Houston Texans. Hadn't worked out for the Texans. They've been so bad this year. Offensively, they've been inconsistent. They were so bad their coach just passed out at halftime. That's how awful they were. They were like, I can't deal with this. He just fell out. I'm just messing with Gary Kubiak. He's expected to coach this week, so we'll make a little light of it. But Ed Reed signing with the New York Jets. He did play for Rex Ryan when Rex was with the Baltimore Ravens. What will it do in the AFC race as far as the wild card or even the division? I can't say it'll do a whole lot. It'll help the Jets from a leadership standpoint, but I don't think it's going to propel them past New England. They may make the playoffs. We'll see. One of the big games of the week, Maddie, the Kansas City Chiefs, our Russellville CrossFit poll question, they are taking on the Denver Broncos, and they are an 8-point underdog. Undefeated, 9-0. Can you talk about respect or lack thereof? Is it too high, too low, or just right? I have to say it's just right.
And I have to agree.
Because defensively, are they going to prevent Denver from doing some things that they've done all year? Maybe, a little bit.
Yeah, to me, it's almost like a math thing. It's like, yes, they are very good, but can their good defense stop that good offense? And can their okay offense do anything against Denver's okay defense?
I agree.
It's like the math thing. It's like, yes, I respect them, and they're very good. They're 9-0. They're undefeated. But I think 8 is just right on. I really think it's right on.
And I agree with you, because when you talk about holding down the Denver Broncos, that essentially means you're holding them to 27 points. That's what holding down Denver is. I think Kansas City can do that. But can Alex Smith put up 28 points? I don't think he can. That's why I think the line is about right. I think Denver still scores a minimum of 24 to 27 points. I think Kansas City may get in that 17-point range, and I think the Broncos will win somewhere around where the line is set. But it still should be a very good game. But another great one this week. Also, in the NFC, San Francisco 49ers are traveling to the New Orleans Saints. Right now, Drew Brees and company are on fire. In that dome, San Francisco's offense has been sputtering. They only scored 9 points against the Carolina Panthers. Matty Lassiter, who do you have, 49ers or Saints?
The Saints do look better than they would have because, let's just say it. They played the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to all the Cowboys fans. I'm sorry to Mark out there, you guys. But that's why they look so good. But I'm feeling the Saints right now. I'm just feeling them right now. I don't know. It just seems like they're building up steam every week, even though, like I said, they play the Cowboys. But even so, I just feel like they're building up a head of steam, and that they'll take the 49ers down.
I think so. I think Kaepernick will play better. I think the 49ers offense will play better. But when you talk about Drew Brees in that dome and the momentum that they have, it's hard for me to see them get beat. I think it'll be not a total shootout, but I can see San Francisco getting in the mid-20s somewhere. I think New Orleans will get to that mid to high 30s mark, and I think they'll go ahead and win the game, which is really a big deal because now Seattle will be in great control in that division. And we know Seattle, if you have to go up there and play, it's virtually over. So I think it'll be a huge for the race in the NFC West. I think New Orleans, they're battling Carolina in that NFC South. That'll go a long way in that race as well. So again, we'll see how that unfolds. Maddie, we just have a few minutes. We have to get to our Arkansas Razorback talk. It's written in my contract that they will not allow me to be back on this show if I don't talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks, who in basketball. You want to start basketball, Maddie?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Let's
I'll do the theme song or the fight song while you do it.
While Maddie plays the fight song, Arkansas basketball back in action tonight against Louisiana. No, not Louisiana Lafayette. You are not allowed to say that. No, you are not. You must call them Louisiana because they are official and they are big time now, Maddie, in the Sun Belt Conference. But Arkansas
have beautiful uniforms.
They do. They're like Miami Heat looking basketball uniforms, I think. But Arkansas takes them on tonight. Again, a game Arkansas should win, but it is a step up in competition. The Sun Belt, obviously, it's a conference you all have heard of, which that makes it a little bit more of an upgrade. But what are you looking for from this Arkansas basketball team? Defensively, they have to get out and pressure. They have to be able to force turnovers without fouling. We know hand checking has been an emphasis and putting your hands on ball handlers. On the glass, Arkansas's front court should be a strength this year, and Arkansas executing in the half court. Their half-court offense should get a little more of a test tonight against Louisiana at 7 o'clock at Bud Walton Arena. I am looking forward to checking that out as well. And yes, Maddie, I'm sorry, but now it is time. It is time to talk about Arkansas Razorback football. And it's time to talk about the bowl. Oh, never mind. Yeah, well, but this time of year, you almost feel good about it. I know I've heard a lot of news people, a lot of reporters say this. I think they even said it last year when Arkansas became officially bowl ineligible. They were like, thank goodness I don't have to take a ride down to Memphis or have to ride to Shreveport now. Thank you for going 5-7. Arkansas, of course, officially out of bowl contention this year. And so now you just have to look at it and say, what do you want to see from the Razorbacks football team this year? What do you want to see as they finish out the year? And for me, I want to see Brett Bielema's philosophy start to translate. I'm not even talking in terms of wins and losses anymore. But I want to see Arkansas be able for 3 or 4 straight plays to carry the ball for 5 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards again. That steady Brett Bielema role in the running game that we saw for so many years in Wisconsin, that's the philosophy he's trying to put in at Arkansas. I want to start seeing some signs of that these last couple of games, Maddie.
Yeah, I think that's what I want to see too, because obviously I'm not expecting wins. So I can't say I want to see him win, although I would like that. But I don't expect that. I think you hit on something. You want to see his plan take hold.
Right.
And even if that doesn't translate to wins, and I think he has that same mindset now that bowl is completely out of the question. I heard him on the radio the other day talking about taking Tevin Mitchell out and a couple other guys in favor of some freshmen, because he said, we work on tackling drills every day, and Tevin Mitchell misses 2 simple arm tackles and they go the distance in the last game. So, he says, I don't know why that's happening, but we're going to put somebody else in his place until we figure it out. That type of thing. I like seeing that, saying, if this guy won't do it, I don't care if he's the senior or the junior or whatever, how many years he has under his belt playing the SEC. I don't care. I want somebody who will do what I want them to do. Follow the plan, not I can say it, not half-ass it.
No, in Arkansas, one thing when you look at this talent, Maddie, you can just see that they're a lot further away than a lot of people thought. I think some people had Arkansas maybe 6, 7-ish wins this year and maybe progress up to an 8-win team next year. I don't know if I can see an 8-win team next year, which is going to be hard to swallow, because when you look at the Bobby Petrino era, yeah, he had a 5-7 season. Some people think he would have went to a bowl game, but remember they had Texas his first year as one of their non-conference games. But Bobby Petrino was able to get to the Liberty Bowl in year 2. They were 7-5 in the regular season, 8-5 after the bowl win. And then, of course, his last 2 years were sensational. I'm not sure you're going to see that exact progression from Coach Bielema's teams, but I do have a lot of confidence in what he'll do. Chris Ash will get that defense together, and they will be just fine. But, Maddie, we've done it again. We have shut it down on a Friday here in the Cogswell Motor Studio. I know you're sad, but folks, get out there, check out some high school football. You've got the Cyclones in the area. You've got the Hector Wildcats as well. So you can get out there and check out some high school football. For our producer, Maddie Lassiter, I am Weldon Braxton. Mark Freeman will be back on Monday. You have a good weekend.